Hello and welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On the program today, we'll get comments from Ryan Flickner from the Kansas Farm Bureau on issues that are important to his members during this legislative session. And we'll sit down and talk with Greg Anderson, who is a board member for the National Biodiesel Board. We'll talk about what's going on with their industry. As well, updates from Kansas Farm Bureau, Kansas Wheat, the Kansas Livestock Association in Paragon. It's a good show, so stay with us.
Closed captioning brought to you by
The Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers. KansasSoybeans.org.
Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Wheat Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online at kswheat.com. Kansas Livestock Association, supporting our members' business interests to meet consumers' demands. KLA.org.
Welcome back. Ryan Flickner with the Kansas Farm Bureau sat down recently and shared some of the thoughts of his membership this time of the year.
The 2018 session has certainly been an interesting one here in the first 6 weeks or so. I think most of your viewers are aware that we have a new governor, Dr. Jeff Colyer, with the transition of former Governor Sam Brownback being confirmed to his position at the United States Department of State for the Ambassador for Religious Freedom. That brings in kind of a second State of the State address, if you will, which Dr. Colyer did present a couple of weeks ago now. And we've actually arrived and passed turnaround time, which is kind of the first deadline for non-exempt committees to get their bills out of the House of Origin. So a couple different bills that Farm Bureau has followed over the course of the first 6 weeks of the session deal with some water bills. There's a deer permit and transferability. Then there's a couple of other major bills that we're really focusing on. One of them is Senate Bill 405, SB 405. It modifies the animal unit conversion for poultry facilities under a dry manure system in Kansas. That's something that Farm Bureau, a lot of our members, if the state were open for business and did have some poultry slaughterhouses and facilities, that our members would own the poultry barns that would grow those birds for poultry and broiler units. So that's something that we followed very closely and did pass out of the Senate, full Senate chamber right before turnaround. And here in March it will be referred to the House Agriculture Committee. So we will certainly get our members engaged and hopefully get that bill across the House floor as well. And then eventually, once it does pass the House, get that over to Dr. Coyer's desk for signature. Another bill that Farm Bureau has engaged our county farm bureaus in, as well as our grassroots members, to send action alerts and notify their legislator when they're back in the district, is regarding House Bill HB 2740. It proposes to increase property tax mills, 6 mills for 3 years, so 6, 12, 18. The current mill for public education, K-12 education, is currently 20 mills, so it nearly doubles the mills that property tax owners, not only in agriculture but also residential and commercial property owners, would pay to fund K-12 education. Our policy book is very clear, and our grassroots membership has spoken many times that they believe the most unfair tax is the property tax. So it's certainly a bill, House Bill 2740, that we are fully and vehemently opposed to, and we'll make sure our members do contact their state senator as well as their state representative so that we can make sure that bill does die and does not even get out of the committee where it's been proposed to be heard in.
That's Ryan Flickner from the Kansas Farm Bureau. Thanks for joining us. We'll have more coming up.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Livestock Association, supporting our members' business interests to meet consumers' demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. Kansas Wheat Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online at kswheat.com.
Imagine having someone help you pick the best corn hybrids for every field on your farm. Your Oldie representative can combine your data with his data to offer a field-by-field prescription. Contact Oldie Seed today at 877-692-4555.
All over the country, more and more communities are making the change to biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil. And the decision continues, improving the health and welfare for millions of Americans while adding billions to our national economy.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
Well, we're joined now by Greg Anderson, who is a member of the National Biodiesel Board. He's a farmer from Newman Grove, Nebraska. Greg, soy-based biodiesel and biodiesel in general, there's a great story to be told. We've been telling it for a while, but we got to even continue to make sure that the folks know all the good things that are going on. So tell us about it.
Well, we look at biodiesel really being established by the soybean checkoff many years ago. The soybean checkoff established the biodiesel industry in the whole United States. And with that, we saw the need to increase our usage of soybean oil. We have a lot of soybean oil typically left over after each crop. We pretty much have a good place for, number one, exports. We do export a fair amount of soybeans whole out of our country, but for the soybeans that are crushed here, very valuable to know that soybeans are grown for their protein, and that protein results in soybean meal, which is absolutely fed to a whole sector of animal ag, whether it be pork or chickens and so forth. So that's the primary reason, but soybeans are also an oil seed, and with that, the soybean oil becomes a very valuable component now with biodiesel. Years ago, it wasn't that way. Soybean oil was very plentiful. It was a drag on our market. We had so much we couldn't know what to do with it. So a group of farmers sat around a table some 30 years ago and said, let's address this. Let's see if we can burn it. Let's use it as a fuel. And lo and behold, through testing, through research, through promotion, it is where it is today. About 2.6 billion gallons being produced just this year alone. And we see a growth to come out in the future. 4 billion gallons by the year 2022 would comprise about 10% of our whole diesel fuel supply in the United States.
Well, it's a story that ever evolves. I think we started talking about this years ago. It was, get a few farmers to use it, then some bus fleets and some other folks. And really, we want to tell folks, this isn't what it was 5-6 years ago.
Right.
It continues to change, and you can use it year-round. Yeah,
you can use it year-round. Many applications are doing that. Biodiesel has like 45 million tested miles of applications, all types of climate and all certain different types of engines and a host of applications. Great success story. Soybean oil comprises about 50% or more of the feedstock that's used, and that's going to be true for the next 10 years and ongoing. Biodiesel can be made out of a lot of things, but soybean oil continues to be the most readily available, most sought after by the processors. It creates a wonderful fuel with the properties that it has, cold flow and all such, and it can be used year-round, just like you said. In the Northeast, a great, huge story there, blended into home heating oil. We'll use about 400 million gallons alone this winter, just in the Northeast.
I think it's always a good story, too. Many folks don't know that several groups are involved, head to the East Coast every winter to look and to interact, and so not only folks in the East Coast can find those that grow the soybeans for the oil, but also kind of a vice versa to see how it works. And plus, it's helping meet the standards that are needed back east.
Exactly. They have some mandates in New York City, for example, 5% of all The heating oil needs to be blended with biodiesel. And we find a good synergy, a good partnership with those folks. A lot of those fuel suppliers are been generational ones that have, their father sold coal, their dad sold oil heat, and now they're selling bioheat. And it's like that with the farming situation, as you know, many generational. Both industries dependent on weather. They need cold weather to have a good year. We need the rains to have a good year. So we've seen a lot of overlap. We are in constant dialogue with those folks to help them along, answer any questions that they may have, but also help them promote the fuel. And we see it continue to grow.
It works good. So if you grow soybeans, you may be one that helps heat the East Coast. So
that's right.
Contributing. We're talking with Greg Anderson from the National Biodiesel Board. We'll take a break and be back with more coming up.
This segment brought to you by Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. Grassandgrain.com. Kansas Wheat Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online at kswheat.com.
As we continue our conversation with Greg Anderson from the National Biodiesel Board, we talked about the East Coast. Now let's go across all the way to the West Coast, California.
Well, you think about California, they're kind of the trendsetter in a lot of ways. California has some very strict emissions standards in place. And to get into that market, we need to pass their test. The California Air Resources Board, or CARB for short, needed to take a look at biodiesel and see if it had the properties to meet their emissions standards. And lo and behold, through testing, we've passed with flying colors. They're able to use B20, which is going to be huge because California is actually going to be our number one market here shortly. We see that market continue to grow, and as California goes, sometimes so does the nation, but certainly the West Coast, going up through Oregon and Washington, the state of Washington. There's some mandates there that show that while a B5 or greater could be in the works. You know, this is a huge market. A lot of people, a lot of trucks, a lot of things move with the diesel engine. As I think I mentioned trucks, the trucking industry really takes about 87% of all the diesel fuel used in the country. I mean, we are a society that moves things by truck. Certainly we have the rail, certainly we have airplanes and boats and all that, but trucks really move it. And as I travel interstates, I mean, just about everything you meet is a semi. So with that, a lot of good success in the Midwestern states about some pumping stations, blending biodiesel, offering it there at the pump. The trucker can come in, know that he's filling up with B20 and on his way. And that's been a huge market. That will continue to grow as well.
Super, sounds good. So I want to make sure we went from both coasts, and maybe we don't fly. We take it by trucks. We can use soy biodiesel.
That's right.
Again, thanks to our friends at the Checkoff for making that all happen. The soy Checkoff, boy, good investment. That's why we want to also to talk to farmers about that investment and how it continues to pay dividends. We think it maybe just does one or two things, but of course biodiesel is a huge one.
Yeah, it's really the biggest return on investment of any project that we've ever done as far as the soybean checkoff. It brings back about 63 cents per bushel just on biodiesel alone, and that's huge. I know my farm, if I took a 63 cent a bushel hit, if I didn't have it, I don't know if I'd be profitable. It wouldn't happen. So this provides profit opportunities, and it creates tens of thousands of jobs. It really keeps our economy going.
Greg Anderson, farmer leader from Newman Grove, Nebraska, a member of the National Biodiesel Board, has joined us. Stay with us. We'll have more coming up.
Spring is sprung, and Premier Farm and Home has what you need to keep your yard crabgrass free throughout the season. With a complete line of pre-emergents, you can stop crabgrass before it starts. Premier Farm and Home, 900 Southwest University Boulevard, or find them on the web at heycow.com.
Organizations along the North American wheat value chain sent a letter to President Trump, President Peña Nieto, Prime Minister Trudeau, as well as to lead negotiators from each country, stressing the importance of the North American Free Trade Agreement to the wheat industry. Ranging from seed to bread and baked goods, key groups from the wheat value chain signed on to the letter. Gordon Stoner, the president of the National Association of Wheat Growers, said NAFTA has benefited not only wheat growers, but all our partners along the entire value chain, from farmers to consumers and everyone in between. The fact that wheat producers and end users from all three countries would speak with one voice about the importance of NAFTA should speak volumes to our leaders. Mike Miller, the chairman of U.S. Wheat Associates, said the relationship between U.S. wheat farmers and Mexican flour millers and wheat food companies took off with NAFTA. It is a highly successful partnership with tariff-free access that helped make Mexico our largest customer the past 2 years and supports revenue for wheat farmers from dozens of states. In the letter, the groups emphasized that an updated trade deal is critical to ensure that all stakeholders can work together to provide the highest quality products at the greatest value for both the supply chain and consumers. The following organizations signed on to the letter: American Bakers Association, National Chamber of Industrial Wheat Millers in Mexico, Cereals Canada, National Association of Wheat Growers, North American Millers Association, U.S. Wheat Associates, and Western Canadian Wheat Growers.
In August of 2014, several groups joined forces and petitioned the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, asking for the monarch butterfly to be listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act. You may already know that this butterfly migrates in the spring from Mexico to as far north as Canada, only to return in the fall 3 to 4 generations later to its overwintering ground in Mexico. The monarch butterfly is important to Kansas farmers and ranchers because Kansas lies squarely in its migration path. So if the monarch is ultimately listed as a threatened or endangered species, it could impact how farmers and ranchers are able to operate their farms throughout the state. Kansas Farm Bureau is participating in several efforts to help conserve the monarch butterfly, and small, simple changes to routine jobs around the farm can offer a win-win solution, ensuring that there is ample and quality habitat for migrating monarchs as they travel through our state. There are programs available to farmers and ranchers at K-State Extension, NRCS, and FSA to help ease the financial burden and provide technical assistance to improve habitat for the monarch and other pollinators. To learn more about what you can do to help the monarch population thrive during its migration through Kansas, visit our Legal Foundation website at www.kfb.org and scroll down to and click on the Legal Foundation logo.
This segment brought to you by Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. Grassandgrain.com. Kansas Wheat Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for wheat. Online at kswheat.com.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
What if U.S. soybean oil were an industry sensation? If end users started asking for it by name? That future is here. The time is now. To meet customer demands, the Soybean Checkoff is investing in varieties that produce oil with increased functionality. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
You need a partner that you can count on to be there for your business. Providing a depth of understanding to risk management issues so you don't have to. A knowledgeable support team located in your area, delivering products and services to make you more successful.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
Imagine having someone help you pick the best corn hybrids for every field on your farm. Your Oldie representative can combine your data with his data to offer a field-by-field prescription. Contact Oldie Seed today at 877-692-4555.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.
U.S. beef and pork exports had a record-breaking year in 2017, according to the U.S. Meat Export Federation. The beef export value reached $7.27 billion, up 15% over 2016 and 2% above the previous all-time high set in 2014. Pork exports at 2.45 million metric tons easily surpassed the previous volume record established in 2016. Beef exports accounted for 12.9% of total U.S. beef production in 2017, down 13.7% the previous year. Export value averaged $286.38 per head of fed cattle processed, up 9% from 2016 and the second highest amount on record. U.S. Meat Export Federation reports Japan solidified its position as the leading market for U.S. beef by marketing purchases totaling $1.89 billion in 2017. The U.S. is marketing a wide range of beef cuts in Japan, and the U.S. Meat Export Federation suggests the market holds potential for additional growth. There is concern, however, that Australian beef currently is subject to significantly lower tariffs. Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Mexico all are poised to gain further tariff advantage on the U.S. through the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Good morning. I'm Cody Wintersheet with Paragon Ag Advisors. March Madness got started a little earlier than normal, it seems. The last 4 to 5 weeks have been an eventful time in terms of the grain markets. Interestingly, the corn and soybean markets have been tracking very similar with last year's new crop contracts for the last several months, at least up through the end of February. However, that's where the tracking ceases, as last March saw the markets come under pressure. We thankfully haven't seen that so far this March. In fact, the various soybean contracts all put in new contract highs, and the new crop soybeans has rivaled last summer's high. Corn, on the other hand, reached levels we haven't seen since last August, and new crop corn is just a few cents from last summer's high as well. Ironically, these nice advances have come in the face of very sideways type markets for both the crude oil and the US dollar. The big drivers have been the highly talked about weather issues in South America, in particular Argentina, but also massive fund buying. If you recall, the funds held very large net short positions really across the board at the beginning of the year. Now they're actually net long a respectable amount in the grains. Do yourself a favor and be looking at ways to take advantage in some fashion of these recent opportunities and take what seems to be a relatively easy first-round win. There does always seem to be a Cinderella story every year in the tournament, but remember, it's a win-or-go-home environment. We'd be happy to discuss with you how to set up a game plan to weather the madness. Thank you and have a great day.
Well, that's our show this week. We appreciate you tuning in. You can follow along online at kansasagreport.net. You can also get ag information online anytime at that website as well. And follow along on social media on Facebook and Twitter at Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Closed captioning brought to you by
The Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers. KansasSoybeans.org.
Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farmers and ranchers since 1919. KFB.org. Kansas Weed Commission, leaders in the adoption of profitable innovations for weeds. Online at kswheat.com. Kansas Livestock Association, supporting our members' business interests to meet consumers' demands. KLA.org.
What if U.S. soybean oil were an industry sensation? If end users started asking for it by name? That future is here. The time is now. To meet customer demands, the Soybean Checkoff is investing in varieties that produce oil with increased functionality. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
The producer-funded Kansas Wheat Innovation Center was built to get improved varieties into the hands of farmers faster. Kansas Wheat, farmers advancing their future through wheat genetics research.